You're live.
And welcome, folks. This is House Corrections and Institutions Committee. It is Wednesday, February 4th. And with us today, we have Historic Preservation to go over just some updates in terms of a few items in Section 4 of capital bills. So Laura, you want to come on up? Section 5, Section 4. We have Section 4.
4 and 5.
Oh, yeah, because you have the building community grants. Forgot about
Two of those, yes.
two of those. You got historic preservation and you get the barns. Just some updates.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Laura Treishman. I'm the State Historic Preservation Officer. I am joined today by Caitlin Corkins, who will speak to you on Section 5, the Building Communities Grants. Jamie Duggan, who is our Director of Preservation, who will talk about major maintenance at the State Historic Sites. And then I wanted to reintroduce you to Joshua Bell, who is our Director of State Historic Sites. You would have met him at Bennington. He started in June. So he's been with us one season and now making big differences for us.
He's learning the ropes. And then you're in here. Good luck. This is another part of the work. And it's really different than everything else.
So I wanted to quickly give you an update of the underwater historic preserves. This was established in 1982. With your assistance, we have gotten up to 11 preserves that are open annually. The funding goes to the mooring systems, the site inspections, creating, maintaining the database, outreach, and community liaisons, because we know that even if they're not identified as a preserve and where people are invited to dive, because of the technology, the sonar and GPS and everything else that's out there these days, people can find all of the other 300 wrecks that are in the lake. The most visited of these is the General Butler, the Phoenix, and now our two new sites, the Providence Island Canal Sloop and the Potash Point Canal Boat. We have approximately 700 dives a year, outreach to 4,500 students and teachers with educational programming, so that there is also a component where you don't actually have to dive. They've got 3D models of the wrecks, and they're doing a great deal of research on the history of each of them. And we know from the website views, we're reaching well over 12,000. Some of that's me, because I'm like, is this preserve open yet? With flooding, we did have to keep a couple of them closed and rush to close others, but this past year was really very good.
And just a quick question, what about the drought? Did that have an impact on any sites? Like, do they become more and more accessible?
They become more and more accessible, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And we're actually finding more that
Yeah, you
you
just
can
found one.
just walk out to. Yes, yes, absolutely.
Well, if they're more accessible, would be problematic in terms of more access to them.
More access to them and safety. So we know that we had 120 registrants this past year. The estimated number of actual divers was 250 with 700 dives. The funding goes to cover the maintenance, the equipment replacement, repairs. As you can see from these images, the Water Witch signage is actually in really good condition. It was put in just a couple years ago, a refresher. But the horse ferry is heavily encrusted. You can't read the sign. And then you can see that there are moorings tied to each of these that we need to make sure those are intact and stable. And then periodically we have to replace the buoys. There's permitting systems that we have to go through to make sure that the Coast Guard and everyone is very well aware of these dives. Safety is foremost on our mind with these sites. And ultimately, we would like to open more of them. particularly since they are accessible, but we have to make sure that our partnership with Lake Champlain Maritime Museum allows us to go and dive these other sites, make sure that they're safe, take away loose items that people can take home as souvenirs, which is illegal. So we have a really great relationship with the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum on the underwater preserves.
I'm gonna ask a really stupid question. Who owns these? Is it the state that owns them? It's the Maritime Museum that is the actual entity that works with the public and all of that, correct? It's not the state.
So we subgrant money to the Maritime Museum, which has been officially established as the Maritime Archives for the state. The state owns anything that is on the bottom of the lake on our side.
Where does the New York side start?
Um,
Halfway over the lake?
Vermont owns more of the lake than New York does. Yes. And there's also criteria and rules about what could be opened as an underwater preserve, what could be identified as historic. If it's something that went down 10, 15 years ago, that is not historic. And actually the Coast Guard and the communities are trying to get those up, working with A&R, because those, we don't want to be down in the lake.
We wanted to sink one boat.
That was historic.
Which one? We wanted to sink it.
We were trying to add to the underwater preserve.
We tried to sink it. We didn't let you.
It's not my idea.
It was the Adirondack.
Yes, yes, it was one of the ferry boats. It has since
What
been,
did happen? New York got it,
New
right?
York took it. They were
Sink
trying
it.
to sink it and their governor said, oh, I don't think so. And it was scrapped and taken apart.
We had a good time on that. That's when we were on.
It's not a good time.
What did you say?
I don't mean to disagree with you, but that was not a good time from where I was sitting.
A lot of time in the committee on that one.
But because of that, we did explore and open 2 more underwater preserves. One of which is being added to the National Register of Historic Places right now. We're working on the Providence Island Canal. So we got a U.S. Maritime grant for that project.
That's a federal grant.
That is, yes.
Right?
I want to stay on underwater burials just for a second. The governor recommended, and you kind of already emailed back to us, the 31,000 that we're flying back.
That's the
Reallocated.
unmarked burials.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Oh, that's different. That's
This
not
is
underwater.
underwater
Yeah, this
preserves.
one. Okay. Are we getting there? Will we get there today?
We already did it, sort of.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
But I'm not the only one.
There's no additional funding asked for the unmarked burials.
But we took back 31,000, or the governor recommended that we take back 31,000 that was allocated.
Yes, we're recommending that you take back the oldest money,
Yep. Okay.
31,000, and that'll leave us with 50,000.
Yeah.
Just in case,
And the thinking is you pull that back and then you put it to roadside markers.
20 of it, yes.
But we don't think of it that way. We think of the bottom line. We don't think that we're reallocating something over here to put over here. We just look at the bigger picture.
I'm constantly moving money around, so I think of pockets.
We don't quite think that.
Thank you. That was it.
Absolutely, thank you. So I'm gonna turn major maintenance over to Jamie Duggan to talk you through the major accomplishments we have seen in the past few years.
Good morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you, Madam Chair, committee members for your time. I'm happy today to come and talk to you a little bit about the Historic Sites Maintenance Fund. To catch you up sort of as an update, we had presented a spreadsheet last year that showed that we have, I think, over $6 million projected over, the next 10 to 15 years that we're aware of. And we find ourselves in a position now, however, where we have a lot of great things, but they're all happening at once. And so that's put a little pressure onto us. I guess I can advance, can I? How easy. So to start, we had a number of unanticipated issues come up, mainly in our HVAC world and with some building infrastructure. We spent over $124,000 last year in replacing a number of furnaces and some other boilers. These are important parts of our operations. They're also at some staff housing and deal with a number of the leases that we have, in particular in Plymouth with the cheese factory. These definitely put a lot of pressure on earlier previous fiscal year budgets that we were able to cover, but put a little bit of a dent into things. So we last saw each other this summer in Bennington, and to catch you up on that, you know, of the study and planning efforts we've done over the last 4 years or so. What we're doing at the moment is we are continuing to essentially monitor the conditions and the monument. We're updating our monitoring equipment to for better precision and accuracy, and we're switching to our vendor as the host, as opposed to that being subcontracted out behind them. That ran afoul with some issues in BT buys, and we had a little bit of a lapse from the monitoring equipment that is currently in there to getting this new monitoring equipment in. So we might have a little loss in data just for sort of the next few weeks. I don't think the conditions are going to change drastically yet.
So before we get into Bennington Monument, can we go back?
Yeah.
Unanticipated expenses. So you've had 124,000 plus unanticipated. Is that those dollars all coming out of the FY 26, or is there previous?
Those have already been, with the exception of one of the hot waters. Those came out of fiscal year 24, I believe.
It says
So-
25 there. So
Yeah.
did you
Yes.
have enough
Yes.
money through your FY 25 to carry this unanticipated cost?
We did.
And anything left over that goes into FY 26?
Yes. And the way we've been progressing is, you know, with any overages or any additional funds that we have in one of these budgets, we just keep going back to that original list and trying to work down, you know, the list of projects still to do.
So this was unanticipated, almost 124,000. What does that do to the projects you're anticipating this fiscal year? Before we even get into FY 27, but for this
Yep.
fiscal year.
It requires us to focus on those projects that are active and moving and put other projects, keep them waiting, essentially.
And I think
Well, this is kind of will get explained out, I guess, in the next few slides.
Okay, let's do that first before we do Bennington. Just Bennington, it's its own.
Yeah.
I just want to get more of a handle
Yeah.
on the 124,000.
The short update for Bennington is we have 2 pools of money and we still have a lot of resources available to push that forward.
I want to get there. I just want to do the major maintenance piece first before we do Bennington.
So our primary project right now is the historical site renovations and gravel pathways improvements at the Coolidge Homestead. This is a project that originated in December of 2020. And in the 5 or so years ensuing, we have put the project out to bid 3 separate times. Each of those times, we extended our window for contractors to familiarize themselves with the project. We finally, after this 3rd attempt, did receive a proposal that we accepted. It was certainly higher than we had originally estimated back in 2021 even. We have are able to cover all the costs of that. We've dedicated 100% of our fiscal year 25 budget to that project. That is money, again, that we had been holding on to, waiting for this project to move forward. We're going to deal with the balance of that, taking 50% of this year's fiscal year budget and allocating it towards that. And that'll leave us a little bit of a shortfall, which you will see we're going to pick up in fiscal year 27's budget.
You just mentioned.
And this is starting next week and will be finished.
July. This takes care of some foundation repairs that need to happen. We have water infiltrating into the cellar. There's going to be drainage and some weatherproofing of the foundation. And another really important component is we're going to be replacing the gravel pathways with a more of a hardened surface, a stone impregnated asphalt type material that will make our pathways much more durable and improve the accessibility on the site, especially getting from building to building. As you know, it's the entire village there that we are interpreting. Any questions on that project?
So in FY 25, you received for major maintenance $500,000 in FY 25. And I'm just trying to figure this out. So in the previous slide, unanticipated costs for FY 25 was 124,000. So was there some money left over from FY 24 that you used to cover
Yes.
that 124 as well as any money from FY 25?
Yes, so we went back and we took the oldest money, got rid of that first, and then used the rest from 25.
To make up for
To
the
cover the
124. So if you flip and saying to the Coolidge, you're using 100% of the maintenance from FY 25, you've already tapped into that $500,000. So how do you come up with 585,000?
I think it was fiscal year 24, we got to 700,000. And so I think some,
24, you got 500,000.
There was a bump there.
Did you
One of
get-
it might have been in 25.
Did you get any cash? Because what I have here is for major maintenance, you had $500,000 in 24 and 700,000 in 25. Yep.
so that's the extra that we were using.
Isn't it? Yeah, I was looking, because you had a budget adjustment, 200,000. Sure.
Right, so that's where we were covering the 124 and anything else, and then 100% of what remains is
The 585.
585, and we've committed all of that. And this is such a big project that BGS is acting as our project manager.
Trying to follow the money.
BGS are acting as product managers on Coolidge.
And another major part of this is changing the accessibility inside the homestead. Right now, there's some ramps, but then they lead to stairs. So you can't get all the way through the house. So we're going to be reinterpreting it better as preservationists, but also making it accessible all the way through.
Any other questions on the Coolidge project?
So once you've dealt with all of this, you're gonna have a shortfall at the end of FY 27 of 176,000.
We will have a shortfall starting in 27.
Starting in,
We'll be able to cover this with 27 funds.
how much is, the project is coming in at $1 million?
Yes,
Is that what the RFP in the bid?
yes.
It's $1 million. Right.
So you ended FY 24. You started FY 25 in the hole 124, you covered that. You're gonna start FY 27 in the hole 176. Is this? Like, is this gonna continue, right? So are we looking at another 50K in the hole for FY, let's say 29? Like
Yes, but we're trying to make sure that like the project in this case is going to be going on until the next fiscal year. So we can carry things through and prioritize which get paid first.
I get that. Governor's recommend was 500 in FY 24. You got a $200,000 bump to 700. Governor's recommend now 26 and 27 is 550. I'm just wondering if we're not, that's what I'm wondering.
But you're starting out 176,000 short at the beginning of 27, so July of this year, you're going to pull 176,000 out of that 550 for FY 27,
Yes,
which then leaves you 300,000.
we have a chart that'll show you how we're trying to disperse 27 money. But as Jamie was saying, we've been going after these projects for so long, some of them with grant funding from federal government, and they all came in at the same time, and we were able to contract, and we didn't want to miss that opportunity. Then when we started crunching the numbers, we're like, oh, our coffers are going to be very empty.
Are you anticipating any federal grant money coming in?
Not for this project, but we have a lot of federal grant money available to us at this point, thanks in large part to Laura's efforts.
And is it available? They haven't been
Yes.
frozen or anything, they're available.
So if we're ready, I can move on to the Morrill project, because that is a project that does have federal funding. We have a Save America's Treasure grant, $226,000 that we're matching with monies out of fiscal year 26. We have some FEMA money involved here, public assistance money from damages of the flood of 23 that are targeted for those repairs. And we are going to be covering with a portion of fiscal year 27 here, enough of the scope of work to get the grant funded portion completed and closed out. We have a September deadline for that with the Park Service. And then there, as Laura's saying, with this project as well, we have a number of other items that will carry on afterwards. We're going to have to figure out how to fund those next biennium, I believe. Because those are significant costs. There are things like putting gutters on the Morrill homestead, which are restoring them back. They're no longer there. There's a lot of heat trace that's being used to keep things from freezing up. There's some interior masonry and structural shoring that has to happen as part of the foundation repairs and drainage installation. So we'll put the infrastructure, for example, in the ground. The gutters will eventually lead to drain pipes in the ground that go to dry wells and collect the roof runoff. For now, we'll put those pipes into the ground, but we'll cap them. And then when we get the additional monies in the future and are able to put those gutters on, we'll be able to tie into that system. It'll be waiting for us to tap into that at that point. This is also, yeah, but
Jamie, is that federal money in the bank or is it expected?
It's in the bank.
That's good. Okay.
So
I'll
this
bring
is
Claude
doing
back.
a lot of the preliminary work, design documents and preliminary work.
We've done all that already.
We are in negotiations with our preferred vendor, the contractor. I'm actually waiting for their best and final offer today, hopefully. And we have been working towards doing a lot of pre-planning activities. We have done some exploratory excavation, some archaeology, and some other testing to understand exactly, where the bedrock is below ground so that we can start quantifying the amounts of stone we would need in certain areas and things like that. Yes.
Since you used the word preferred vendor, does that imply you've got multiple quotes?
We received 2 bids on this project, and one we were not able to accept. The bid that we did receive, we're looking forward to working with this contractor. I've worked with them on the past here actually even on the State House on a few projects, and we we're looking forward to starting that project with them.
Why weren't you able to accept the other bid?
It wasn't submitted with the qualifications that we need to see to be able to award a project of this type to a contractor. They just weren't simply qualified.
And this was put out to bid three times?
This was also put out to bid 3 times. This last time we extended our bid to have 3 pre-bid meetings just to garner interest while it was out on the street. And so we're in a good place here though, and ready to move forward. Right now, we are, as I said, as soon as we can get the final proposal and get that into contract form, we'll send that off to the National Park Service for their approval, which is part of our grant requirement. The project is anticipating to start this spring, and the drainage components, the excavation and site work will be completed by September of this year. So it's not yet happened, but it is right on the precipice of being available to move that forward. Any questions here?
So can you weigh in? This is the second project that you've put out an RFP 3 times over the years. What are you seeing with the contractors that you're not getting bids back?
At first, it was that there was more attractive work elsewhere, certainly coming out of COVID and dealing with a lot of the sort of boom that had happened at that point. Our sites are more remote. They take a little bit to get to sometimes, so travel is a consideration that I know a lot of contractors worry about. And our projects can be fussy and move at their own pace, and that sometimes comes in conflicts with contractors' interest in moving along quickly and keeping the dollars flowing in. So, and of course, there's, as I just mentioned, qualifications. We have to have the right people with the right skills working on our building, or else things go wrong.
Any other questions?
And I would add, we've been chasing a lot of work that was done incorrectly or incomplete.
Well, in this house particularly,
Fixing things, yes.
in particular.
Really?
Yep. Painting in particular.
Because they didn't understand, or because they weren't capable, or when we're fixing things, we're fixing them, but
Up until Jamie took this position 6 years ago, BGS was in charge of all of our contracting and funding. So we would call them, I have a roof leak, they would get anyone who bid on it, contracted and fixing it.
Okay.
And in some cases, they were not as qualified as they should have been, like at the Museum and Education Center at Coolidge, the HVAC was all installed upside down. But he was the vendor that was fixing it for many years, and finally, when he was no longer around and there was dripping everywhere, we got some professionals in who were like, this is upside down. You need to replace everything, because it was causing all these other problems with mold and damage. And
Is that in the newer part?
it was in the newer part. Yes.
That was done 15
Yes.
years
Correct.
ago.
Yes.
Yep.
So it was the original installation of
Yes.
that HVAC system in the new addition, where it's the administrative building, is where the visitors go.
Mhm.
And that was done by essentially a custom home builder, not an HVAC specialist.
And then we had to go back in, I think, because there was moisture in the walls, didn't we? In
Yes.
that building?
Mhm.
And we had a project last summer that we had leaking downstairs in the Coolidge Foundation's library.
Right.
There are one of our tenants there.
there was lack of quality on the contractor's part, not lack of understanding historic.
I think it's a little bit of both. Yeah, it depends on the project. If it's a mechanical, then it doesn't necessarily need to be a preservation specialist, but replacing the roofs a certain way and working on woodwork and plaster repairs, then we do need someone with those qualifications.
I mean, I would like to think our BGS group can get quality vendors. it doesn't sound like they did in this case, so that's why.
That was back in the day, and now we're in charge of it, and we also meet regularly with BGS on their projects. And I will say 10 Baldwin, just down the street, had a water break because of the cold, and they were like, we're gonna replace this all with plaster. Exactly.
So this was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
They want. Okay.
So just for giggles, it's also not just always the case of they not being qualified. People, sometimes it's that they don't know how to match the historical requirements. I mean, so just about
That's what I
that.
was drilling into.
Right.
It's the quality, not the historic. It's installed upside down.
Well, in that case, yes, I'm just saying it could be both.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's a difference, and that's what I'm trying to understand. And I hope BGS has got vendors that don't do that now, because 15 years ago, we won't shoot them.
Or they were looking at the blueprint upside down.
This might all be a good segue into the old Constitution House project, because we are working on the energy efficiency and making interior environmental improvements. That building was also received some damage from flooding in 23. We have some FEMA public assistance funds to work towards this, but we also have a National Park Service semi-quincentennial grant for this work. And that is little over $400,000 with no match, but we did put small match in $53,000 just to make our grant look a little bit more appealing.
A little.
One of the issues is that the power plant, the furnace here was also, it died during the flooding due to a lot of corrosion and other issues. Not only do we have to replace it, but because of the impacts of the flood hazard area and river corridor rules, the FARC rules, and FEMA's involvement with the public assistance funds, we need to take the furnace out of the cellar and move it up to the first floor level. We're actually looking to perhaps put it up on the second floor level.
Is it a furnace or a boiler?
It is, well, that system has not yet been designed. We are not going to replace in kind here because we have a gangly old oil-fired furnace that is not at all efficient. This building had some ventilation issues during COVID because it was sort of mothballed for that time, and we did have mold develop on the inside, and I have been working towards that. We will have, again, matching with the monies that we have available. We will have a little bit of a shortfall on this project as well that we will tap into fiscal year 27 funding, and then we'll have to find a little bit more.
So are you anticipating going out and doing the work in FY27?
Yes.
You
Let's
get,
start, if we can get finished with our contracting. We have a building science expert that we're contracting with, and a team that he's pulling together to design the system. We're doing some monitoring ahead of time, temperature and humidity, and a blower door test and other things to figure out exactly what our HVAC system should be and how we'll also deal with air sealing. Part of this project deals with the exterior envelope, so we'll be restoring all the windows and doing some other air sealing around the exterior facade.
when do you anticipate going out to bid?
We're in contract negotiations with a preferred vendor here as well. The design work went out to bid this couple months ago. And we invited 3 vendors, the vendor we're working with, and the only two that are on the BGS retainer list for construction projects. And this is our preferred vendor. We've worked with him in the past. He does have experience working with historic buildings, actually is the author of a really important analysis on windows in northern climates, historic windows in northern climates. That is sort of a seminal piece for us preservation folks. So we're looking forward to where this is going as well.
So are you actually doing some work on this summer and fall?
Yes.
Okay.
The semi-quincentennial grant expires September of next year. We have not asked for an extension on that one yet, so we've got 2 additional years that we could ask for. But this building has been closed since 2020. And we really want to get in there and start interpreting and addressing the mold. And we are meeting regularly with A&R's flood managers who have
Been on site.
been on site
evaluated the
several
situation.
times. In fact, those from other regions came because of the significance of the building. They wanted to see it. And they recommended that we do not need to elevate so we can get the historic exemption. However, we're looking with our structural engineer on alternatives, including elevating it just 6 inches or feet,
6 inches.
6 inches. And other alternatives to make sure that it doesn't get flooded.
To be fully compliant with FARC, we would have to elevate the structure 2.5 to 3 feet above its current datum, which would cause significant aesthetic issues and accessibility issues for entrance and egress.
Troy and then James?
I know the rep from that area is eager.
Yes.
Any chance of opening in 2027 for is it the I can't.
Semi-quincentennial.
Thank you.
I've only just mastered that. We are looking at some sort of soft opening just for the events around the Constitution.
And when do you think grand opening, hard opening?
2028? And I've been in conversations with
You-
all the reps from this area, regularly checking.
James?
So 6 inches, obviously you didn't just choose that for no reason, but when you look at it from the outside, it seems like not very much of an elevation for the cost. Is there any consideration of more like a foot or anything, or is it really like, I guess, will 6 inches, I have no idea, solve this problem in any way?
Yes, it will help it'll help lift the building a little higher and allow for a sort of floodway underneath it we'll be filling in the foundation. And so then there'll be an interstitial space
Yeah.
between the top of the slab and the bottom of the floor framing. We don't want that right down on top of that slab. We're worried that it'll rot out some of the wood members that are comprising the first floor. So one idea was to give it a little bit of space. That space could discreetly have some flood vents or other capability to prevent the flood. This building sits in the floodway. It's northwest corner. And the threat is actually Lake Runnymede, which is right behind, which is a part of the recreational offerings there in Windsor. And we have all struggled, as well as the FARC team. We really don't see the danger that the current mapping describes. If the building were to be flooded at a level above that, we would have much larger problems than just a 6-inch elevation. So our engineer is looking at 3 different schemes. Then the 6 may move to 9, but it won't go up towards 2, because that's a significant enough change in elevation that requires a lot of other issues to consider.
Yeah.
And so I believe that because it is a modest elevation is one of the reasons we're able to keep the costs down. If it had to go up higher, it would require a lot more structural material to do that and secure it.
Thank you.
So you anticipate a soft opening possibly next summer?
Yes, around July 8th, when the Constitution was addressed in Windsor.
Any other questions on Old Constitution House? Okay. So this is a summation here of some of our projected shortfalls. And as we apply our fiscal year 27 monies, which we will see in July, we can essentially complete all of the Coolidge project, all of the old Constitution House project and at least the grant-funded portions of the Morrill project. That'll pretty much tap us out with about $10,000 left in our fiscal year 27 monies. And as I mentioned, we still have to figure out how to fund the rest of the major architectural upgrades at the Morrill Homestead. But that is, I guess, where we'll be at the end of this cycle. And it is getting a little bit smaller, our buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah, what if you just have something pop up at a facility that you didn't anticipate?
Which continues to happen year after year. Yep.
So where do you go for that?
Well, again, I think what we end up doing is we end up having to reallocate some funds that we have in hand right now to address that need, to fix those repairs, and then have to backfill it later with when
Yeah,
things are more available.
exactly. It would likely push Old Constitution House out. The additional work at Morrill would have to wait. And we would then also tap into our special fund, which is from admissions and gift shop sales, that supports all of our seasonal staff, exhibits, activities, gift shops, things like that. So we would be taking from our pocket or closing buildings.
What's the threshold when you say a project's so big that BGS should be the project manager on it? Is that just a case by case basis, or is it over a certain amount?
I think projects that have a higher level of historic preservation, we need to continue to manage because of our skill sets. There are a lot of parts of our portfolio that are new construction or are, more modern repairs. Those certainly, I think those are areas moving forward that we'll specifically ask for BGS's help on, things that are more common construction, in more things in their wheelhouse. The monument is sort of its own thing, so.
It is, isn't it, John?
That's the type of a project of that size, absolutely. The infrastructure that BGS has certainly is helpful.
And for the accounting, do they code their time? And is there a transfer of funds over to BGS then,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
I'd love to think not just with you guys, but I'd love to take a closer look at that generally, just how BGS codes the time and how some of this is transferred from department to department. We don't always get into that too much.
So the project manager for the Coolidge,
Jessica Time.
it's from BGS.
Yes.
So it's coming out of their budget.
No,
No.
it is coming out of our money. The way it works is she's in receipt of the invoices and the payments, and she approves them according to, the project specifications. And then those come over to our agency and go through our payment process.
And then we also get statements for her time.
And that's part of the project cost.
Yes.
Yep.
So you're drawing on the expertise of BGS in some of these larger projects,
Yes.
but you also sift out the historic piece in terms of you want to keep control of that or have a handle. So for the Coolidge facility, how do you work? Because there's a real historic piece there as well in the Coolidge. So how do you ensure that the project manager and BGS works with you folks?
We're involved all the way through. So we're helping to inform who the vendors are. We're going through contracting. Our site administrator is reviewing absolutely everything, drawings, meeting with the contractors. So we're involved with everything.
And the scope of work is, I won't say it'll be hidden, but it's not work that is on sort of visible historic fabric. A lot of it is structural and, removing the barriers to accessibility inside the building. It's pretty straightforward as far as an execution. So that's why this project, for example, is a good match. The work going on at the Morrill Homestead is it's cut from a different stamp, definitely. And there's more involved with historic preservation crafts, woodwork and stuff, that that's the type of project that we're choosing to hold on to and manage.
You have a shortfall going forward of about $1 million. But that would be for future fiscal years,
Yes.
to complete the Justin Morrow homestead. But in the meantime, your money is so tight between your FY 26 and your FY 27 that if something pops up at another historic site, one of these projects might have to be delayed a little bit.
One of them might not have to go forward, or we might have to close the site that's having the issue. Or the building that's having the issue.
We would like to end on a good note, however. We do have another project here, the Theron Boyd Homestead. And this is a project that we have a tremendous amount of money available to us. Again, Laura has done the yeoman's work on reaching out and obtaining these significant federal grants. We have an $867,000, 972
972.
grant with no match from the National Park Service that is emergency supplemental historic preservation funding. This will allow us to stabilize that building and essentially do the same types of repairs that are happening at Coolidge and Morrill, subsurface drainage and waterproofing of the foundation. We also, we mentioned, I believe last year, it was impending, but we have a private donation of $500,000 at this location as well. We were originally going to use that money to stabilize the foundation, but now that we have this emergency supplemental fund, which was a grant that we really weren't anticipating, but we're very happy when it came in. It's going to allow us to essentially deal with the exterior envelope here and restore the clapboards, the windows, the trim, and the roof. That's just a temporary corrugated metal roof up there right now. And so this is a project that has a lot of runway and it has no other really pressures. There will be minimal need for any historic sites maintenance fund to go in there. We think most of what we'll be doing there, almost everything is covered by these monies. And here we do have a little FEMA money as well for the damages that happened in 2023. So this is actually a project that we don't really have to worry too much about how we can move forward with it.
And when is the time frame for putting a shovel in the ground?
We got the disaster supplemental funding notice in December around Christmas time, so we're waiting for the grant agreement. And then we have to do an AA1 with joint fiscal to accept the grant. But we should be looking at some archaeology and some design planning this summer.
I've already been on site with engineers and have started some of the schematic designs for to get them started. So
This site has never been open to the public.
Okay.
So I'm really very excited to move this
Been in the
along.
works for 30 years.
Yes. And we don't want to make it into a house museum. We want to keep it as it is to really get people to understand construction from the late 18th and early 19th century, and then use it as a venue to train contractors on how to work on historic buildings.
So you don't anticipate really going out to construction on this until next year? And what's the time frame for the National Park Service grant? Is
It's
there
a 3-year grant.
a year frame?
And I assume the NPS grant with no matching at the donor, the private donor, that's not fungible money. Can't use it elsewhere. It has to be on the Boyd.
We asked her and she flat out said, I appreciate your other sites, but no. Boyd is my house, so.
I assumed.
Yeah.
We just want to get fungible.
that's all that I have to do today.
Yeah, anything else on this? So you're running a pretty tight ship and you might end up being a little bit of trouble.
Underwater preserve, so I know how to deal with being underwater.
There you go.
Nice one.
But to also segue to covering things, we are requesting that fundraising be added to statute.
There's language in the back of the governor's proposal.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, I'm looking at the time, and we've got to do building community grants.
Yeah.
And also, we've got to do Bennington's. And then we have some other things scheduled around 9:30. I'm wondering if we could quickly do the building community grants, and
Absolutely.
reschedule the Bennington,
Yes.
because the Bennington's gonna take some time.
Caitlin Corkins then.
So, but the language, you start on the language. I think it's important to do the language.
I have not seen if the governor actually put together specific language, so I kind of AI and I came up with and secure capital through fundraising.
It is, what it is section 10. You go in here. And it's language, and it's basically, a lot of it is to help with the Bennington Monument, is what we heard from the administration. Was that the Historic Preservation Officer, with the approval of the Secretary of the Administration, may accept and solicit.
Okay,
So they added and solicit. So you can go out there and pound the pavement.
that works.
Grants. They also added that requests for approval for solicitations or fundraising campaigns must designate a specific project that the funding would support and a
Right.
fundraising goal.
I think that is perfect, so that you know where the effort's going, the funding is going. That makes for great partnership.
Education, if we don't, if the words and solicit aren't in there, it's illegal for you to ask for funding.
Correct.
Correct.
We can accept donations and grants and loans and other things of value, but we cannot actively fundraise, ask. Right.
So that could help some of the shortfalls, and it could also help for the Bennington Monument.
Correct.
Hopefully.
And their fundraising or solicitations need to be very clear what that project, what that funding would go to which project.
I think that's very smart, logical.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes for great partnerships and gives people pride of what they're putting their money into. Yeah,
Great, that was easy. Let's quickly do the two grants. This is in building community grants. This is section 5. The 5. Yes, section 5.
Good morning. Thank you all so much for letting me jump in here. For the record, I'm Caitlin Corkins with the Division for Historic Preservation. And I administer the building communities grants that are housed in the Division for Historic Preservation. So I'm just going to be giving you all a very quick update of the two programs. The first one is the Historic Preservation Grant Program, which was established in 1986. We offer 50-50 matching grants of up to $20,000 to nonprofit organizations and municipalities to support capital projects to repair and restore historic public buildings. This program was funded with $300,000 in the last fiscal year, and the recommended funding remains stable at $300,000 for the coming fiscal year. So this slide shows the last 10 years. I know some of these are probably pretty small there on the screen.
Yeah.
And the amounts that we have funded over the last 10 years. Since the program started, we've funded over 675 projects, totaling about $7 million in grant funds. Demand for the program has remained pretty steady. It is always competitive. We always get more in requests than we have available to give out. In fact, in December, we made the most recent round of grant awards. We awarded funding to 19 projects. in 11 different counties, totaling a little over $300,000 in grant funds. I did send ahead of time, so you may have printouts of the little summaries of each of the projects that were funded in December. But just to share a few of those, on this slide, we have the Old Stonehouse Museum in Brownington, Vermont. This is for a window restoration project. Then in Middlebury, the Ilsley Library, they will be putting a new slate roof to replace the building's original slate roof as part of a very large expansion project, but the slate roof project will be focused on the original historic library structure. And then finally in Ferrisburg, the Union Meeting Hall. This is a former church that then became a town hall that then went through several other lives and is now being actively used as a community center. And this grant will cover masonry repairs to the brick on the building. Questions about that?
All part of the Building Community Grants Program. Okay, Barnes.
Great. So Barn Grant Program, very similar. This was established in 1992. Again, these are 50-50 matching grants of up to $20,000. And these support repair and restoration of historic agricultural buildings. And these can be owned by anyone, a municipality, a nonprofit, active farm, private individuals. The goal is really to preserve Vermont's agricultural heritage. So again, I have the chart of the last 10 years. You will note that that we haven't actually awarded the most recent fiscal year funding yet. That will be awarded later this month. But this is the previous 10 years, and through the life of the program, we've provided over $5 million in grant funding to support over 500 projects throughout the state. Again, demand on this program has remained consistent. I will say there's been maybe a slight dip in the number of applications over the last 2 to 3 years. I think the biggest barrier that I have heard from people in terms of applying to the program is their ability to find contractors available to give them estimates. And we do require that applicants provide at least one estimate with their application so we can ensure that they have a realistic budget before we give them a grant. And that's been a real challenge for folks. I think Jamie kind of covered some of the issues that we're seeing coming out of COVID, but the fact is there's just not enough tradespeople out there doing work. And so those that are extremely busy, and people are struggling to get them to come and look at their project and give them a bid. So I wish there was a way that I could solve that problem, but so far, I don't know how to train more roofers and timber framers myself.
These are more specialized too.
Yeah, we see a lot of, especially with the barns, a lot of timber frame structures that really do require somebody with expertise to be working on the projects. Again, this is just a selection of projects from last February that we funded. The Allen Farm in Jamaica, which included a number of different pieces of the project, including drainage and foundation work, and carpentry repairs to the siding, as well as a little bit of structural repairs. Valley Ridge Farm in Orwell, there's cupola repairs on one of several barns on the property. And then the Remington Williamson Farm in Huntington, slate roof repairs on this barn.
These functional farms?
Some of them are, and some of them are not. They're not required to be in active agricultural use, but it does give them a little bump up if they are in the scoring matrix for the program.
But they're still privately owned?
Some of them are, some of them are publicly owned. It's available to anyone. So I just wanted to end by sharing one project that we funded that has wrapped up. This is the Braintree Hill Meeting House, which was constructed in 1845. It was the town's original meeting house, and also was used as a church. As with very many churches in our rural communities, the congregation dwindled over the years. And eventually the building passed to the town, and then in 1970 to the Historical Society. They used the building as their museum, as well as hosting public events there. They've got a bunch of fun summer events that they host. There's a bluegrass concert series in between June and August. They have history-themed bike rides, cemetery tours, an annual community cider press party, open houses, an old home day. So lots of fun community activities that are happening in the building. They've done a great job maintaining the building over the years, but recently became aware that the building's slate roof had sort of reached the end of its life. It was installed about 150 years ago over the original wood shingle roofing, which was a very common practice. But what it means is that the fasteners that are holding the slates in place start to fail, and then it's very hard with those wood shingles underneath to make repairs that are lasting. So they decided that it was really time to do a complete re-roof of the building. This is, as you can imagine, for a small historical society, a really big project. But they did a tremendous job reaching out to partners from the federal government to the local level. The voters in the town voted to appropriate funding for the project. They got a significant federal grant through the National Park Service. And then were able to fill out their funding budget with a matching grant from the state program. So this project was completed in the spring, brand new slate roof that should last 150 years. So thank you so much. And I'm happy to take any other questions.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Laura, if you could hook up with Tate at some point and schedule for Bennington.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I would say a good 45 minutes for Bennington. Be more than half an hour, I would say. I would say. I don't think it would be a full hour. But I think it would be more than half an hour for sure. So a good 45 minutes.
Okay,
Okay,
absolutely.
so follow up to Tate.
I'll reach out to you when I end up time.
Great.
I don't know if we have any models this year.
No.
We'll leave that for Sean. We'll leave that for Sean. Okay. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I'll be back. I would like to keep working through, we got state colleges, and if you need to take a personal break, take a personal break, but not all at the same time, please. And let me get situated here.
About yourself.
So for the committee, this is state colleges. And it is, let me find the right section, section 8. There is no budget adjustment being requested. But there may be a new discussion on something possibly.
So yes, a brief discussion, and I want to express an apology, some regrets. Chancellor Malk is not able to join us this morning. She was called to a meeting with a member of appropriations. So we will not be able to actually discuss much on that particular proposal. I can give you a brief preview,
Just a brief
a
review.
little overview.
Yeah, just a
And then
committee.
she respectfully requests an opportunity to be able to come back in if you would be so kind.
That would be
to
fine,
able-
but I think the committee needs to have the first broad review.
Absolutely, but I can give a broad brush overview as to what that proposal might look like for you. And I am going to go ahead and log in.
So before you start, both of you, if you could both identify yourself for the record as well.
Go ahead while I'm logging in, please.
For the record, Mike Stevens, AVP of Campus Operations for Vermont State University.
And I am Sharon Scott. I'm the Chief Financial and Operating Officer for the Vermont State Colleges. And so I want to say thank you for allowing us to come in and talk to you about Section 8 on the Vermont State Colleges. We are very excited about the opportunity to give you some updates on our major maintenance projects and also on the central heating plant project that you funded last year. And those funds have actually been put to extremely good use so far this year. And I'm actually going to turn this over to Mike to talk about in just a couple seconds. I know that I do need to share my screen to be able to allow you to see everything. But we have.
And then you're gonna mute.
I am muted.
Okay, I think it's okay now. Sometimes this is
Allison?
late.
Okay. No, I do not have any volume. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and so we, like I said, we have had the opportunity to be able to work on some really significant work this year. In the capital bill last year, you funded $1.5 million in major maintenance for FY26 and an additional $1.5 million for FY27. And to date, we've already spent $1.2 million on major maintenance. And we anticipate across the system, Vermont State University and the community college, spending approximately another 500 to 700,000 on major maintenance. Obviously, you funded 1.5 million, so those additional funds will come from institutional dollars. And we've listed some sample projects below in what that looks like. And Mike is actually going to take you through a handful of those projects.
Happy to.
So if you would be so kind.
All right. So as you can see on the screen, we've got all sorts of different projects that cover all sorts of our objectives, right? Safety, envelopes, ADA accessibility. As we look down through this list, we see generators, pools, stairs, HVAC equipment, all the things that make up a building. I think let's just jump into some of the specific projects. At Castleton Hall, we had a roof project. Skylights, windows, repairing some of the paint that gets damaged when we have leaky systems. You know, we just try to keep our facilities as aesthetically pleasing as possible, but also recognizing that these institutions are significantly aging and require a lot of love in order to just meet that need. Happens to be a project that also achieves some envelopes. Move on to the next. Different one here we're highlighting, right? Pumps, valves, still a heating system for the pool. So we replaced and repaired some pumps. We added new valving. We were able to salvage some existing controls for that specific system. End result there, we've got a pool that's still operating, a pool that's heating, and we achieved some energy savings because the modern pump is far more efficient than one that's 15, 20 years old.
So can you explain what the pool is? A swimming pool or?
Yeah, every single one of our primary campuses has an investment in an Olympic-sized pool.
Mhm.
So there's an Olympic-sized pool at Linden, at Johnson, at Randolph, and at Castleton.
And it's for the students and faculty and.
Many of our campuses actually see the public, general public, utilizing those pool resources more than any of our students or faculty, to be honest.
So for the public coming in, do you charge them a fee?
Yes.
Or municipalities may have access to it as well? So
There's a fee for anybody that's not directly tied to the institution.
But things like swimming lessons are frequently taught there. A lot of the local children learn to swim in the local pools at the college locations, which is a great opportunity for them to do the Learn to Swim programs. And so having a pool that operates effectively is really important for our ability to be able to function. The Randolph location actually has the highest utilization of all of our pools. which was fascinating to me when we looked at the statistics for it.
Yeah, we're spread across the state and the communities engage that resource at different levels for sure. Some of the pools are not actively used. Some of it has to do with local competition. Some of it, there seems to be no rhyme or reason. The next one is another project we accomplished at our Castleton campus. All of these major maintenance projects are ranging from $25,000 to $250,000. Here, we had something that you guys have heard about before, brick spalling, right? So it's a safety issue. It's a chimney. It got relined. That relining had insulation values all the way down to the boiler of that particular facility. So we were addressing both the safety issue and an energy issue at the same time. Just another example. We tried to spread these examples across our different campuses. Exteriors, concrete stair. Salt does a number on them, right? So these stairs in the course of the campus have been replaced 2 or 3 times. Our Johnson campus happens to be steep every direction you go. You honestly do walk uphill to class and uphill home.
Troy?
When you do something like this, do you look at something that combines stairs and ramps for accessibility?
So you'll actually, just to the right of the screen is a ramp,
Okay.
but I will tell you that complete compliance with ADA accessibility on Johnson's campus is a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a very steep site.
I'm thinking of a set of stairs that also has a zigzagging ramp that intersects it on UVM's campus from down by.
Aiken.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I happened to used to work for UVM also and oversaw the Aiken construction.
It's worked all over.
Helped build that ramp. Yep.
It's just, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it is.
Escaping in and around it, but so you don't look at something like that is this just too short of a span? Or?
Well, so just to the right of that, as you go off that image.
Yeah.
I mean, this starts to ramp up here and then turns back around. And then just to the left of it, you go immediately into a building. You can see the building on the side where there's almost immediately inside those doors is an elevator.
Oh, there. Gotcha.
Which campus is this?
That happens to be at Johnson.
So this is a very steep site at that location, but as Mike notes, there is it ramps off to the side and then there's a zigzag ramp that comes up. It is very hard to be ADA accessible right there. It is helpful in that building that there is an elevator right at that location. The elevator in that building is actually only new as of 2008 though. Prior to that, that building, which was built in the early 1960s, had no building. It was 4 stories and there were 4 entrances. That was its ADA accessibility at those times.
Those are 2 dorms.
The green building is a dorm. To the left is the dining hall.
Dining hall, so that's Governor's.
Yes.
Well, Governor's had, I went to Johnson. But the dining hall did have a ramp type at the very entrance.
Yes, it had a
But it
bridge
was
that came
at the
across.
bridge,
Yeah,
but there was nothing underneath.
right, but the
Building is inside
only took you to the
itself.
top. Yeah,
Yeah, inside itself would have been accessible.
correct. So it had that central staircase that took you down to the bottom floor. To get to dining, you could get to dining if you took the ramps, the exterior ramps, all the way outside. And there were exterior doors that could take you to every level, but it would have been very hard in a wheelchair or on crutches to be able to do that. Now with the elevator that's in that building, since it makes it much more convenient, as long as the elevator is functioning. But it does make it very challenging when someone's walking outside.
And what about the dorms? Do they all have elevators and access in there? Because some of them are,
Very, well, I can't say very few. I would say about 50% of our dorm square footage has elevators
across the system.
across the system.
At this particular location, only one of the dorms has an elevator.
And which one is that?
That is Arthur Hall.
Arthur?
Martin.
Let's say Martinetti.
Also has an elevator.
Martinetti has an elevator?
They had an elevator when I was there.
It's small,
Okay.
but it does exist.
That was the first elevator.
We're gonna
I
have to show it. Works there for some.
We got,
He got you there.
that was 50 years ago, I hate to tell you. It's in the 70s, yeah. That was a party school back then.
So,
Really? I was one.
You were in there too?
No, I was one.
Oh, you were one. Oh, well, I could be your mother.
So, want to go to the next slide?
sure.
All right, and here's one that captivates me a little bit more, right? Insulation and piping
Oh,
isn't exciting to everybody, but it's a critical need, right? This is the first morning I left my house that it wasn't 20 below.
right.
In 2 or 3 mornings. So just the highlight of a project that's happening in a mechanical room that's mostly out of sight or out of mind, but absolutely critical.
And this also feeds our lab, this piping?
No, this is Vale Hall on the Linden campus.
Oh, okay, because I saw Vale.
Right.
Okay, but this is up.
VAIL versus VALE.
Ellie, yeah. So this is up in London, okay.
Vale, the original president of AT&T, for folks that aren't familiar with the history of Linden.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Okay, and then we also, so that's your major maintenance.
That's our major maintenance.
And it's been 1.5 million in 26 and 1.5 million in 27.
Right, and those are just a sampling of the projects that Mike and his team had to work on this past year. Without your support, their ability to be able to do that critical work, that helps us get ahead of much of those critical issues before they become major problems would not have been possible. So we know how incredibly valuable these funds are to Mike and his team, and we really appreciate your support and our ability to be able to do that.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, our environments are aging, and without the funds to keep these things up, it's already a struggle as is. We've had heating coils freeze on every single campus since the beginning, since the mid-December.
Okay.
When were the, like Linden, Castleton and Johnson were all built about the same time? When were they built? More in the 50s, wasn't it?
Almost all of our infrastructure has seen significant building booms in the late 60s to early 70s, and then in the 90s to early 2000 timeframes.
But the buildings were originally built, was it in the 50s? Was it before?
It's been an ebb and flow, to be honest with you. There's buildings that go back to the 40s and 50s for sure, but there was major expansions in the 70s and 90s.
So depending on the campus location, so for example, the Johnson location, much of the Johnson location moved up off of the School Street facilities.
Downtown.
Which were many homes, and then near where the elementary school was, up to the top of the hill. Its first building was in the late 40s, but not until the late 50s and 60s, and then into the 70s. As the baby booming generation really, we started to see that really happening. And that happened also at Linden. Castleton, as Mike notes, more buildings in the 40s and 50s. But we do see a lot of buildings in those 60s and 70s eras. And then again in the 90s and 2000s, there were buildings that were supported very much by the state of Vermont, right up through about 1996, buildings that were built through capital funding here. And then there were some funds, about $72 million that were funded by the Vermont State Colleges between approximately 2007 and 2012. To do additional building. So in the early 2000s as well. And so that's where we're kind of seeing this ebb and flow of additional construction. That additional construction between 2012 to 2007 to 2012 really did address a lot of deferred maintenance, which has helped in some ways. But, we're now in 2026. So some of those chickens are coming back home to roost. And you're seeing a lot of these things happening again. But the very cold weather that we've had recently since mid-December has not helped Mike and his team. So
It hasn't.
Yeah, I'm copied in on the emergency notifications as to when these things break, and they're more often than not right now.
And, you know, the other side of the coin is that's what we do, right? We expect those type of things. A building does not stay stable. You've got to maintain it, and that's our role, is to make sure that these assets are maintained as well as they can be.
But it is one of the things that the Vermont State Colleges and Vermont State University has focused on in these last 5 years. So since COVID, since the Vermont State Colleges has really focused on trying to reinvest in itself, you'll notice at the start, we said, not only are we spending your 1.5 million that you've set aside for us for major maintenance, but the VTSU is also setting aside its own funds to address major maintenance. It's also setting aside funds to address other needs and issues related to construction, renovation, and maintenance outside. Those are things that the system and the individual institutions of Vermont State Colleges did not used to do prior to 2021. And so those are things that we are really taking seriously, because we have to be able to invest, because it's important to keep the building envelopes consistent, make sure that the buildings themselves are going to work for us. And we can't expect you to do all of that for us. We need your help, but we can't expect you to do it all. You don't have all the funds. We'd love for you to, but we can't expect it.
Any questions on the major maintenance? So it's 1.5 million for FY27 as well.
Just want to give you credit for how you laid it out with delivery dates and everything. It's something I think we could benefit from on all the budget presentations. So that's very helpful.
So let's go into the heat plant.
Yeah, and
Johnson.
I might be a little bit more excited about talking about this one.
1.5 million and 3.5 million in FY27.
Yeah, so with the $1.5 million fund, you can see in the schedule, the activities that we've completed to date. We've published our RFP, we've had our pre-bid site visit, we've had the question and answer period submitted, and bids are due on Friday. Exciting. This isn't the only project we have bids due on Friday. We also have a historic preservation job that Jamie and Laura are aware of that just walked out of the room. So we've got a couple different projects that will be receiving bids back on Friday. This work actually excites me because we're looking at this project a little bit different than I think a lot of people in the industry have looked at things like this in the past. It's predominantly an MEP HVAC job, right? And when you start talking about MEP and HVAC work, you constantly hear the term return on investment.
It's MAP. What's it?
Mechanical, electrical, plumbing. And HVAC is heating, ventilating, and air conditioning. So what you hear a lot about in the industry is return on investment. Return on investment typically looks at a project from your first time cost and then the energy savings that first time investment will recover to you. So how long will it take to pay back the project cost? This one we built in the RFP, a far more dynamic evaluation process. It's not only about the return on investment. It's how much do we improve our energy? How much do we increase our reliability of our system? How much do we decrease the actual fuel costs that we pay into this? How much maintenance can we decrease by taking old systems offline and providing new systems? What's that result in a reduction of deferred maintenance? How old is the system? And how likely is it that we have to reinvest in that entire system's cost in the near future? So we're going to be weighing all those factors into this project to help us solidify the right approach to address the heating system on 3/4 of the campus at Johnson.
How old is that heating system there now?
So 2 of the boilers are 60s vintage and one of them is 80s vintage.
60s.
That's like me. We'd be fortunate that they're still here.
And the other one was in the 80s. And is it all three that you're looking at?
We're actually looking at the system as a whole.
Okay.
Right? The system as a whole feeds 8 specific buildings on that campus. We're teamed up with we will be teamed up with a design team and a commissioning agent, as well as Efficiency Vermont that will be joining us in the very first kickoff meeting. So between those three industry experts, we're going to be investigating all of the ways that we can provide an HVAC system to this campus. We'll look at geothermal, we'll look at biomass, we'll look at fuel oil, we'll look at all the various options. And with the three experts we'll have at the table, we'll select the source that works best for the campus's future.
So the money in terms of the 5 million gets you down to construction documents?
No, 5 million will be including the cost of the project that we implement.
So it will get you all through the project, and you anticipate, just looking at that, so you would anticipating starting construction probably spring of 27?
I think you're spot on. You've done this before.
As soon as we can turn the boilers off.
There absolutely could be, right? As soon as frost comes out of the ground, we might be able to start implementing phases of this.
Could you get it done? You get it done that summer, so it comes at the
Yeah, by the time that's built into the RFP that you have to be able to have our heating system back on for the next year.
And you'd still be using number 2 fuel oil?
We're not 100% confident that'll be the outcome yet. We're going to investigate those other fuel sources. The current plant is number 2 fuel oil, right? As described, 60s vintage boilers. They're absolutely due to be investigated to see what is the best decision for the next 2 decades.
Thinking about questions like that, when proposals are due on the 10th, and then mere 14 days later award contract, is you guys do this for a living, so I'm not countering that. Just can you explain that? That doesn't seem like a lot of time to make those decisions.
Yes, so the decisions are actually from the award of the contract to the schematic design phase. Schematic design is June 19th.
Mm-hmm.
What these firms are tasked with is reviewing the entirety of the system, the buildings that it provides the heating to, and coming back to us with a shopping list that then we go through this enhanced return on investment evaluation to figure out exactly the scope that we are going to implement to give us the best bang for the buck for the $5 million total project cost.
So my second question is, so is the request for proposals and then the award of contract for just for the design type, that stuff, and not for the actual?
Yes, sir.
That's what you're saying. Okay. Gotcha.
Just to figure out.
Once we've got the actual systems we're going to implement, we'll step on to the design development and then the final construction document phase. Once those final construction documents are done, we'll put that out on the street for bid for contractors.
If I read it better, I would see that right there, which says right on there.
Well,
So your schematic design is going to give you a better feel in terms of the 5 million will carry you through.
our intent is not to exceed this budget. We're going to select the scope that allows us to maintain the budget and provide the campus a more efficient and youthful system.
And working with Efficiency Vermont, in my conversations with Mike, he's explained to me that that may include replacing in place exactly within that same building and using a central plant in the same way. But it could also, as he's worked with, various organizations and talked with Efficiency in Vermont, it could also involve setting up smaller systems inside individual buildings.
Yeah.
That might be less expensive. It might allow alternative fuels. It may allow alternative ideas. Not until we get further through the process will we have a better sense as to what that looks like. But as he notes, the intent is to remain inside what's available for the budget and to look at what's there. If we can come back and say, in order to be able to do an alternative fuel, it increases the cost by 25 or 30%, we may want to come back to you and say, is that something that we're willing to invest in? That would be something that we could talk about. But we'd love to be able to know what that looks like. But for right now, we don't know what the scope looks like. We don't know what the possibilities are yet.
So right now, you have a central heating system that the boilers are all in one building.
For those 8 buildings, yes.
Where is the building located? Is it on the periphery?
That's Arthur's Hall.
Oh, it's Arthur's?
Yep.
Basement of Arthur's?
It's in the basement of Arthur's. And it comes out of the
That's kind
basement.
of Central.
Yeah, it comes out of the basement in 2 different directions. Feeds off to Stearns and over by the stairs that we looked at briefly. And then goes on to feed governors and senators. The other way it comes out, it feeds Martinetti, Harvey, Dibdin, Bentley, and the library for folks that might be familiar with our Linden campus.
You just don't think about that, but all the underground piping that's there. You just don't think about, and that's old. That would be from the 60s.
No, the underground piping actually, life expectancy of that type of system is about 25 years. So it was replaced once in the 90s.
But it too is coming to the end of its useful life. So
Absolutely.
as evaluating this, one other consideration is, as you're looking at a central plant, knowing that that's also coming to the end of its useful life, is that part of the framing and the consideration as to what that looks like? So we have a great opportunity right now to say, looking at this inside the pot of funds that we have, what opportunities do we have in order to use it most efficiently, make the best investments for the campus location, be wisest with it, and achieve all of these individual project goals. And look at what that looks like.
These students are there at the campus at Johnson.
Currently living on the campus are about 200 students right now.
So how much empty dorm space do you have?
Occupancy at the moment is about 30%.
Say that again?
30%.
So which dorm are they basically in? Arthur's, governors, senators?
They,
Predominantly in Arthur's,
Arthur's.
there's some students in Govs and the college apartments that if folks are familiar with the campus, there's 49 units a little further up the hill.
So what do you do with those empty spots in governors, and then senators is totally empty?
Senators has currently Upward Bound is housed in it, but for all practical purposes, it's a relatively void space. We use it for outside partners, especially during the summertime. We do host camps. We generate as much revenue as we can out of that asset, but the asset is pretty vacant most of the time.
right.
And half of governors is used, just about?
One side of Governors is dedicated for student living at this time, but it's the same in the summertime there. Actually, some of our campuses see more activity in the summer with summer camps and outside customers.
Does that have an impact on students who request singles and things like that? Are you more lenient around?
The student singles are readily available at most campuses.
Right. And that has been the case for probably the last 10 years at most of our campus locations. That getting a single is relatively straightforward.
Okay.
So how many students could be accommodated if you were fully occupied?
Well,
200?
what is your student population? Because Johnson has traditionally always had a lot of folks who live off campus.
So Johnson historically has had among the lowest occupancy in terms, or among the lowest number of students living on campus. It has historically had a large population of adult learners and learners who are graduate students and learners who are part of an adult learner population. So I have worked in the system since 2003. And when I started, it was actually at Johnson. And we described them as 3 legs of a stool. 1/3 of the population were adult learners, 1/3 were graduate students, and 1/3 were campus-based undergraduates who might choose to live on campus. And so the available spaces to potentially live in the dorms at Johnson, it can be comfortably around 500.
Yeah, I had 500 plus.
Yeah,
beds.
500 plus. You can squeeze more in, but uncomfortably. But about 500 is about what you can comfortably put in to the residence halls at the Johnson location. And so we have about 200 right now that are living on campus at Johnson.
But how many students do you have at Johnson as a whole?
So we don't calculate that specifically. We calculate residency occupancy because students can take classes and they do take classes at various campuses, and they may take them in a hybrid format. It's harder to identify, are they affiliated with a specific campus location? So if someone is living locally, but they're taking classes at multiple locations, it's harder to affiliate them with a specific location. But I can write that down and see if we can calculate what that looks like for you.
The system now is statewide. So we do know how many students live on campus, but the students take classes in various modalities across the different institutions, depending upon where the instructors are. So it doesn't tie as well to a specific campus geographic setting as it once did.
But what I'm hearing is we have capacity for 500. Currently, there's 200 students enrolled and only 30% of them are actually living in these dorms.
Currently, there's 200. No, currently we have capacity for 500 to live on campus. And
Right.
about 200 are living on campus.
okay.
So
Thank you.
And Johnson, and I'm assuming probably Linden at one point would always, after their freshman year, most people move off campus. I don't know if that's still the case, but that was quite often the case. It's usually your freshman class that lives on campus and maybe the first semester into the second year.
Yeah.
And then they move off campus.
So if you're a Vermonter and you live within a specific radius of campus, you're not required to live on campus. And you're right, after the first year, many students choose to live at home after the first year, or choose to move into an apartment after the first year.
Right.
Simply but to live at home, they realize it's less expensive. Maybe your parents' cooking is easier, access to someone doing your laundry, or easier access to laundry might be easier. So there are a lot of students that do that. Out-of-state students or students that live outside of that radius are required to live on campus for 2 years. So those students are required to live simply because we want to make sure that they're able to get to class and that those students are living there.
Other questions on the heating plan? Okay, so we'll have information next year in January,
Absolutely, there'll be a lot more,
not before.
if not before.
You get a call during the fall.
Yeah, as we have.
During the summer.
Absolutely,
Hello.
absolutely.
So the next thing is brand new,
The next thing is brand new.
capital budget,
It's nice to go.
not yet.
So one of the things that the chancellor and President Berg have been doing over the last 18 months has been doing a significant amount of community outreach with the communities where Vermont State University is affiliated throughout the state. So Johnson and Linden, Castleton, Randolph, et cetera. And having the opportunity, especially in the Johnson and Linden communities, to really understand, and Randolph communities, to really understand what the needs are. And really have that ability to be able to understand kind of what locally the issues are. And while the community needs differ from location to location, so for example, Johnson has the significant issues with flooding. And so the Vermont State College has partnered with them to propose a CDBG disaster recovery grant. Now, while we didn't win that grant, that proposal would have had the opportunity to create a resiliency center on the Johnson campus that would have been able to move the town offices up out of the floodplain and onto the hill where it would not have been in the floodplain. A wonderful opportunity to be able to engage the community and get those resources out of there. But we've also, worked with them about things related to access to healthcare and access to childcare, the post office, et cetera. But an activity and issue that comes up over and over and over again in these conversations is access to housing. Housing, housing, housing. We hear it over and over again. And it's not just for the individuals that are currently living in the community. It's also for individuals who wish to come into that community, whether they wish to come in to work or they wish to come in for school. And what we know about the demographics of Vermont is that Vermonters are generally older, and the same is true for our students. The average age of our students is significantly older than one would think. They are typically part-time, and they are typically quite a lot older. They're not at an 18 to 20-year-old. They're typically in their late 20s. They often have families, et cetera. And so with that, one of the things that the chancellor has been working on is developing or building housing on our college campuses that would allow them to be able to housing for students, potentially students with a family, et cetera, or community members that would allow us to be able to engage and use our campus locations and build both housing for students and community. And so what she would like to come back and talk with you about is the opportunity to be able to receive $1 million to support capital planning and pre-development costs to further develop out this concept. It would include funds for things like early planning activities, doing some feasibility studies, getting into further design work, really going further into the design estimating. We have engaged with an architect to help us. Obviously, you can see we have an artistic rendering here. We have some site maps, et cetera. But really to be able to better understand and make sure that this is something that is fully feasible and is workable for the state of Vermont and workable for these communities. So she would like to come back and meet with you as a committee and engage in a better discussion as to what that looks like. And apologizes for not being able to be here this morning to share that.
So this is anticipated for the Johnson campus?
As proposed right here on this page, this would be the Johnson campus. One thing that we have learned, and we actually learned this from the state of Vermont as it was building the Vermont State Colleges, is the concept would be to create a concept that could be replicable on any of our campuses. And so really have a plug and play sort of apartment complex that you could build on any of our campus locations with maybe some modifications. So if you're familiar with the Vermont State College's locations, you might be familiar with Dewey Hall on the Johnson campus, which is the same as Harvey Hall on the Linden campus, which is the same as the library on the Randolph campus. And it's very similar to another building on the Gaspin campus. The same is true for Arthur Hall on the Johnson campus. The state of Vermont, as it was building buildings, it created one set of plans and did some modifications. It was a great concept. And
Genius.
which is genius. We love the idea of being able to replicate that and build something that has a little bit more modular. So as you can see here on the right-hand side of the screen, it could be built as shown here. This could be built in 2 phases. You have 2 little L's. You can build one L with a little section in the middle, and then you can build a second L. So as funds are available, you could build one and you could build them out anywhere and make them almost modular to a degree. But the chancellor would love to come back in and have the chance to talk with you more fully about these concepts.
So where on the campus is it projected to be?
So for this particular one here, as you can see where the red is located, that is actually it's on top of a parking lot. So the concept here would be to place a building where we already have impermeable surfaces, recognizing that that's an issue here in the state of Vermont. So where we already have an impermeable surface, there's a large parking lot located behind the Visual Arts Center on the Johnson campus. So if you're familiar with the Johnson campus, you have the main quad, there's the Shape building, which you go up the hill to, and you see a Shape building. And behind that is the Visual Arts Center. So you go up a little bit farther hill. And then there's a big parking lot, massive parking lot. The idea would be to place the apartment building inside that parking lot. We have similar parking lots that are relatively unused across all of our campuses that could be used for a similar kind of purpose. In this particular instance, right here would actually overlook the soccer fields.
So that's on the way back of the campus. When you come up, then you just keep going.
Yes,
Because when you come up the hill, that's the beginning of the campus, but it's all the way in the back.
yes, yes. So if you start on the upper left-hand corner, there is, you're starting up there. If you come up Clay Hill and you're coming in the main entrance, you come through the Y there, you can come along the back of the property. And you go through the woods and you'd land right back there. If you come the other direction, you actually come along the soccer fields and you would see the building across from the soccer fields.
I'm just curious, and we don't have to go into depth on this. In a general sense, as you're looking to build new housing on this campus, kind of a two-part question. What happens to the existing buildings that are currently or have been built for housing, for student housing?
Mm-hmm.
And how does this all fit in with the enrollment cliff that we're all anticipating across higher ed?
Mm-hmm. I think these are great questions for Chancellor Mauck,
Yeah.
and I'll take them back to her. Just on a preliminary basis, what we know is that these students are older.
Yeah.
And the reason for looking at apartments in many cases is that they're not 18 to 22-year-olds. So they aren't looking to look in a dormitory by themselves or with a roommate. They're looking to be adults. They're looking to have a life, whether that's living independently by themselves or with a partner or with family. And that's the fundamental difference, that our students are older, but the communities are older too. And
Yeah.
those are the same things.
Anticipated impact that this will have on the surrounding housing availability, not on campus?
Again, a great question for Chancellor Mauck. What we do know that in Lemoyle County, there are 1,200, there's a lack of 1,200 housing units in Lemoyle County alone, just looking for in Johnson. So what I think the Lemoyle County Planning Commission has indicated, there's a 1,200 unit housing need. That's enormous.
Yeah.
This would be a drop in the bucket.
Did I miss why you're expecting an enrollment drop off?
But there aren't kids.
Oh, I know we're seeing it, but it was
Everybody.
implied that we're expecting.
Everybody is forecasting that across higher ed, across the country, especially in Vermont.
Because
Because there's no kids. It's a demographic. It's a problem. Yeah.
purely demographics.
Across the nation, not just.
It's not just Vermont.
It's
But
worse
it's
than
gonna be,
Vermont.
right, it's gonna be punctuated in.
No, I'm not disagreeing. I was just curious why we're anticipating.
The Northeast has a demographics problem, but all of the North has a demographics problem. But Vermont and Maine have a very significant demographics problem. We're not having babies. And we didn't have babies 18 years ago. And those are our problems. It's why we are recognizing very much that our students are older and who our students are. It's one of the reasons why occupancy in a traditional residence hall may go down. When you're 27 years old or 30 years old, living in a dorm isn't going to necessarily cut it for you. Particularly not going to cut it for you if you have a spouse or child. And so as we look at who our students are and what our communities need, it's not just our own students, but it's what our communities need. And we are trying to respond very clearly to what do our communities need and how does that also intersect with what our students need, and try and find what that sweet spot is here. And we know that housing is among those really critical issues, and not just in Johnson. Johnson is clearly one that we can speak to very easily, but it's also Randolph and it's Linden, it's everywhere. We hear it everywhere we go. Workforce housing, we hear it everywhere. And we would love to be able to find ways to be partners in that.
Is online learning part of it or not really affecting that?
In terms of,
You go to Phoenix online, you get your master's in 1 year for $11,000. Are we finding that online learning is taking away from campus life and going to college?
I don't think that online learning is taking away from campus life. I think that a student who's interested in online learning has a different set of goals and objectives than a student who is interested in a campus-based experience. So a student interested in a campus-based experience, living on campus and having a campus life experience, typically is someone who is looking to grow in a different way. Someone who's looking for an online experience
I got it.
has life experience usually.
So we have some more questions here, James, and then Sean.
Actually, in respect for time, and I think the answers after Troy's question, which is in line with mine, is going to be the chancellor's going to answer it. So I'll wait. And it's just about housing and the whole thing. I'll wait until the chancellor comes in.
Pretty generous of you, sir.
Quick question. Has the hall that's empty been looked at for renovation possibilities?
Senators,
Senators and
half of governors.
half the governors.
So we have had the opportunity to talk with the HPB.
Vermont Housing and Conservation Board has come to the campus and toured our facilities 2 years consecutively.
Yep.
And it's their evaluation that the infrastructure there is not easily converted to a living environment.
Concrete walls.
So we've engaged with the state's experts and walked them through, and the results are it's just the cost of construction to convert an infrastructure like that's extremely high.
Yeah, concrete walls, right?
Concrete walls, it's concrete ceilings. It's CMU block walls, but it's concrete ceilings, waffle slabs.
You'd have to tear them down. It'd be easier to tear down than renovate, I would think.
I would guess it would probably be easier to tear down than to renovate that particular building. There may be other buildings on other campuses that might lend themselves more to it. But remember the time period in which many of these buildings were built, it was brutalist architecture times, lots of concrete, lots and lots and lots of concrete.
So the other challenges, right? Low floor to ceiling heights in that type of construction. About the time COVID hit us, there was changes in ASHRAE, which controls HVAC requirements. All environments now need air exchanges, which pretty much means ductwork. And when you add ductwork to low ceiling heights, there's a tremendous amount of challenges. Anything and everything can be done with time and money. But I don't know that it's the most fiscally sound decision to try to convert those structures.
That being said, the chancellor and President Berg are actively working and engaging with the community and with business partners to seek ways to be able to find organizations and others who may have an interest in using those facilities in different ways than we use them today. So as we look at things, we're working with a partner to come in and actually move into a portion of Stearns Hall, hopefully in the next couple of months, to be able to take advantage of being able to use that building and bring in some much needed services to the community, which I think will be really great. But they are slow to develop and they're piecemeal. So it's just something that will take time as we work that. Again, they're all local. I know they say all politics are local, but so is development. And it's one of those things that as we look at as what we're looking at for those buildings, how do we make those buildings as relevant as we can? Or look to say, does the building get mothballed? Is it something that we propose for demolition? Is it something that we propose to do something else if it really cannot be used? It's a shame to see a building empty.
I think you're highlighting a good point though, right? When a local community member comes to us with a need and we know we have an asset, this particular community member is going to take up about 5,000 square feet in a building that's a little bit more than 50,000 square feet. But those are absolutely the things we can act on. Right? If there's a need and we can make it work, we absolutely want the campus more vibrant. We want to engage the local community. We want to bring them to provide those services to our campuses.
We funded a few years ago a master plan for you folks. Does this play into that master plan?
Absolutely does. Yep.
Or is this an addition to it?
No, this all ties together.
At that point, for members that were here, the part of that master plan was to determine through our campuses what buildings you wanted to keep and what buildings you wanted to get rid of. So instead of getting rid of any, you're adding a building.
I think this allows us to be able to better position ourselves to look at how do we make sure that we, while potentially looking to eliminate, how can we seek to also meet the needs. So, but I completely agree.
Yeah, so like you're a separate entity from the executive branch, yet you're very reliant on them submitting the capital budget every biennium, right? I was wondering if you could just like tell me how that process works. Do you send them, agency of administration, everything you need and they say, okay, this is what we can put in? Or do they give you like a target, like, okay, we need to cut like 3%, or you can only like get 5% above, you know? What does that back and forth look like? Just curious.
We get the same instructions that all of the agencies receive. So, so whether it's capital or general fund, we receive the same set of instructions. And we follow the instructions that come from the agency. And then from there, the governor's office makes its determination as to how it will move forward. We have a hearing with them on both capital and on the general fund, but they make their determinations on what that looks like. It is, because we are separate, it's probably a little less. I'm not as familiar. I think it's probably a little like back and forth. But we go through the same process, but it's probably a little abbreviated.
Gotcha. Thanks so much.
So was this 1 million requested of the governor to include?
It was not in the request.
It's not in the request. So the 1 million would be to start the process of planning.
Yes.
And feasibility studies, and then next year would have a better idea of how we move.
That would be the intent. Yes.
And so there's a request of $1 million for our capital budget adjustment to begin this planning process. So we will have the chancellor in to go through a little bit more in detail about this. I know that you've given a presentation to the Senate Institutions Committee, have you?
They're doing it this afternoon. We're doing it this afternoon.
Any other questions before we take a break and then shift to corrections? Anything else on this? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll be
Thank you.
in. So if you could connect with Tate to make sure when the chance, it would be great if there's some time next week.
Wonderful. I will.
If we can speak through this now.
Great. Thank you.
So for the committee, we're on live still, folks. So let's take a break and be back here within by 4:15. And we'll switch.